Mike Owens here for LowKickMMA, and today I'm joined by Johnny Munoz Jr, who on the 5th of November returns to action. There's Liudvik Sholinian. Johnny, great to sit down and chat. How are things with you today?
I'm doing great, man. Thanks for having me on the show. I'm excited to be on here with you to chat about the fight, and of course, I'm excited to fight November 5th. I can't wait.
Of course. Let's get straight into the nitty gritty. Sholinian is your upcoming opponent. What do you make of his style, and what threats do you think he poses to your game?
Yeah, I mean, he's a tough dude, but like everybody, I feel everybody in the UFC is tough. You know, they all had a road to get there, whatever it was. You know, maybe some easier, but at the end of the day, like UFC is like the Super Bowl. What we do, it's the big league. So you know, he's a tough opponent, and I feel he has a strong wrestling background. I believe he's more of a wrestler. You know, I think he was a Ukrainian national champion, but I don't have really issues fighting wrestlers because I come from a jiu-jitsu background, and I also know how to wrestle too. I've been wrestling my whole life, which people don't know. And so it's like, it's going to be a good fight. You know what I mean? I believe my grappling, my wrestling is better. And if we strike, I'm going to be better there too. So I feel like he's just a very head-on guy, doesn't move his head, just comes forward and will take a beating. So I'm ready to give him that beating.
When you say there about that come forward style, I would agree with you. I guess when you're game planning and you're strategizing with your coaches and your team, is someone like Sholinian who's prepared to come forward and who's prepared to perhaps leave so many openings, is he a good guy for you to game plan for?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like he's a great guy for me to game plan for. I feel like I run my game plan. It's going to be, I'm just going to paint a masterpiece November 5th. And but I'm not taking nothing away from him. He's a tough guy. But as long as I stay focused, run my game plan, and worry about what I'm gonna do, it's gonna be a great night for me. I'm not really focused so much what he's doing. I'm aware of what he could do, but the main thing is like going in there, being in the moment, being present, and just letting my martial arts showcase, how good I am.
I think I saw a previous interview of yours where you talked about seeing your opponent in the UFC PI. I won't ask you to recount the story, but what I would like to know is, what is the emotions when you experience that scenario, when you see a guy in a kind of friendly scenario who in 4 weeks' time you'll be locked in a cage with?
Yeah, I mean, it's a little awkward, but I mean, I'm cool. I make the best of it. I try to like joke around, friendly. His sense of humor is not all that. Like I'm Mexican, so I'm from California. But I grew up like, I don't know. At least I know Mexican families, like we joke around a lot. We talk shit. So like, I was like joking around with them, but like I've always been told like, I think he's considered Eastern European. Their sense of humor is a little different. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I don't think he really quite understood, because I know he speaks English, but he was kind of like very like plain when on the responses of the joking. But it's like, whatever, man. To me, it's like, what am I going to do? Sit there and be like, oh, fuck you. You know what I mean? I'm not going to, we're at the PI, I'm not trying to get kicked out. We're going to fight November 5th. Like, why are we going to fight now and, get in trouble and not make no money when I'm just going to wait and, make money November 5th fighting you and beating you up. You know what I mean? So now it's just like all, to me, it's fun and games. It's a fucking game. You know what I mean? Play around. It's the art of war. So November 5th, we'll really get to fight. So, but it was different. It's the first time I've actually encountered an opponent before I fought him. So, but it was cool with me, awkward, but I'm comfortable with it.
Of course. I want to talk about your training regime, because you kind of switch between a couple of gyms. I know that you train down in the Entrum gym in Tijuana, and I know that you spend a lot of time in Las Vegas and California, and as the PI, as you mentioned. How have you kind of structured that camp to get all your needs for all the different facilities that you use?
Yeah, so like I'm always like on the road. So just to like get a little background of it, my home gym is in Sequence. It's in California, which is located in Norco, California. And that's my father's gym. So it's the gym I've been since I was a little kid. So that's always my home gym. So 2 hours south of my gym is Tijuana, Mexico. Yep. So I train at Entrum gym down there, and it's a great place. There's fighters from all over the world there. Like there's also a lot of Europeans who are going there to train. Like there's been people from Holland, Spain, England. I've actually been there
Mm,
to train. And I think because a lot of people, like, it's easier to get into Mexico than it is the United States. Like
mm,
when you're dealing with passports and all that. So there's a lot of bodies in there, and it's like everyone goes head on. So it's a great place to train, get a good hard sparring in. And I was originally introduced there because me and Brandon Moreno are friends. We've
mm,
been friends for years, so that's why I started going there about 2 years ago to train, get some work, and so that's good. But Brandon Moreno now he lives in Vegas. He's officially full time in Las Vegas, so that's why I go to Vegas a lot to train with him because me and him are close friends. So I always go out there to train, and of course get the benefit of the PI. Because it's a great place to get like therapy, strength conditioning, food, and they help you with a lot of things. So, and Vegas is like 3 hours north of where I live. So it's crazy because it's all on the same highway, the same freeway. It's called the 15 freeway. So
right. Okay.
Vegas, my gym, and like Tijuana, it's all in the same thing. So it's either I'm on the same freeway, either going north to Vegas or south to Tijuana.
Mm,
So but it's cool, man. I make it all work out. I'm getting good training in. And I feel like the drive to Vegas, the drive to Tijuana, or when I'm driving back to California, it's good alone time where I'm able to think and process things, how the training sessions went, visualizing how the fight's going to go. And I think that helps me out a lot because I feel as a fighter, you need to be able to sit down and really think to yourself. I feel a lot of guys don't really get to do that. They're just training and they're going home now. Their mind's off fighting. I don't know what they're doing, but I think
mm.
you really need to sit there and think and process all this.
No, of course, that makes a lot of sense. I do want to mention the interim flyweight champion, Brandon Moreno, your training partner and good friend, as you mentioned. What I would kind of like to know from your perspective, Johnny, is what makes Brandon Moreno such a special fighter? You obviously spend so much time in the training room, but what makes him the fighter that he is to get to this championship level?
Yeah, I think it's several things. I think he's disciplined. I think to sum it all up, he's very disciplined, and what he does. He trains very hard. He's always on time. He needs to be on time for the training session. He'll get on other people if they're late, like he'll get on. Brandon Moreno's a nice guy, but I've seen him snap in the training room on certain other teammates who weren't showing that same work ethic as him. So like if you're in the room with him, you need to, he's a UFC interim champion. You need to bring that same energy to the room.
Mm,
And it's what I like because I'm the same way. Like I always bring that energy to the room. But he's a very disciplined person, focuses on training, trains hard. And, he's very big on preparing the mind for fighting. And that's another thing. A lot of people don't do that. And I think that's what separates him. He prepares himself mentally to get in a fight. And also he does all the right things. He eats correctly. You know what I mean? He has his wife's a big support system for him, and he has a lot of good people around him. And I think it's what really makes him who he is. And on top of it, he wants to be good. You know what I mean? Like he wants it that bad. And I think it's what makes him dangerous. And you meet him in person, super nice guy. That dude's a killer.
mm. I've got to ask, given your Mexican heritage, if we take all the combat sports, I think this question will primarily fall in boxing and MMA, but if we take all the combat sports, who is the greatest Mexican fighter of all time, in your opinion?
Yeah. So the greatest, I would probably say Julio Cesar Chavez for sure. He's a boxer. He's a legend. Uh, I think you ask anybody in Mexico, they're 9 out of 10, they're going to say Julio. Probably 10 out of 10 are going to say Julio Cesar Chavez. I don't know one person in Mexico that hates him. He's a legend. It's almost like he's a folklore, even though he's real, but
Mm,
it's like a real legend. You know what I mean? And I would probably say him right now. Like Canelo, there's a very mixed review in Mexico about Canelo. Like some people like him, some don't. Uh, I like him. I understand the game, but I think some people that don't understand the sport, they look at him. Oh, he's all business now. He's all about the money. You know what I mean? But I mean, at the same time, when you're in that position, you got to think longevity to,
yeah.
after fighting to set yourself up. And I think that's what he's doing. Um, but yeah, for sure, Julio Cesar Chavez. And then we'll see. Like MMA is still a new sport, relatively new in Mexico. You know what I mean? It's been boxing and football for years. You know
Mhm.
what I mean? And but MMA is really growing now. Now you have Brandon Moreno, who's a UFC champion. But I think Brandon Moreno, if he keeps doing what he's doing, he's gonna be up there like with Julio Cesar Chavez. Because now whenever he's down there, we can't go anywhere. You know what I mean? Brandon can't walk anywhere like in Tijuana. Like everybody just will come charging at him. So it's like very low key, like he's going in and out, you know.
As a man who's never been to America nor Mexico, can you tell me what the biggest difference is between the two countries? Because you obviously spend a lot of time between both. What is the biggest difference between America and Mexico?
I would probably say I feel like in America, things are more regulated as far as like not kind of rules. Like in America, people are fucking, to me, they're a bunch of fucking idiots here, man. Even though we got rules, regulations, but like a lot of people don't follow them, but they are there. You know what I mean? But in Mexico, it's more like a wild, wild west in a way.
Okay.
So it's like, but it's not like, I mean, you got your idiots down there too, but I feel people are aware, like it is what it is. Like we're in America, it's like you have it's a lot of nice areas, but there's some shitty areas where you don't want to go to in America. You know what I mean? I've been, and I was like, oh shit, like this does not look like the America, you know, that you see on TV and all that, right? But in Mexico, Tijuana, there's a lot of poverty, but there's also a lot, it's growing now, you know what I mean? There's a lot of like buildings, like there's a lot of money being put in, there's a lot of Americans that come in, but there's a lot of poverty. I would say there's not, as far as rules, like on driving, that kind of stuff, people just kind of, you do what you want. But I think everybody kind of understands that mindset. So we learn to navigate around it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So for me, that's like the big thing. Like I would probably say like Mexico's like a wild, wild west. The United States, it's more, you know what I mean? More rural, it's more regulated, even though it has its certain areas, but Mexico for sure has more wild, wild west areas. And for me, like, I feel like the people in Mexico, they're just very humble too. You know what I mean? A lot of them don't have a lot, but they're very humble in what they got. They're very family orientated. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, we get together, eat together as a family bonding. Where in America, everybody's so busy that people get home from work and everyone's on their phone or doing their own thing. That family time's not really there. Where I see in Mexico, that family time's like, it's very, very important.
100%. Speaking about family, we've got to talk about your father, because I know it's quite a unique scenario in MMA and UFC. We maybe don't see as many father-son relationships in MMA as we do in boxing. It seems pretty common in boxing, but I know your dad's a big part of your training and your preparation, and obviously works the corner for you in fights. And I'd just like to know, how special is it for you to be able to share your career and your journey in MMA with your dad?
No, it's definitely special, you know. I mean, there's a lot of like, you know, father-son relationships, they could be torn apart doing this, you know what I mean? Because, you know, because you have a relationship as a father, but then you need as a coach too, you know what I mean? It's two different relationships. And I think we do good on separating the two, you know what I mean? I mean, there's times where like I'll get pissed off, like, man, like, you know, fucking my fucking dad, you know what I mean? But at the end of the day, like it's for my own good, you know what I mean? And he's always been hard on me as a kid, and it's always like my father's always been like, you know, one of those dads like where he wants what's best for you, but it's tough love, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think it's super important to have a father like that, because I think as a kid, especially as a boy, a male, you need to have a little fear of your father. And I think that's what really, it's not the fear that I mean, it is the fear that, man, if I don't listen, my dad's going to beat my ass, but it's not the fear of, oh, my dad's beating me up every day, I need to call the cops. It's not that. It's more like a fear of respect. You know what I mean? Knowing that if I don't do good in school, or, you know, I didn't listen, you know, my dad's going to be disappointed on me. So it's more that fear. Now my dad's not proud of me. And I think that's super important. And I feel our relationship's strong, you know what I mean? We have a good bond, and he's always supported me. He'll go with me when I go to Vegas from time to time, even in Mexico, he'll come with me, travel with me. So he does a lot for me, and I'm very appreciative of it. And it's why, that's also a motivation of mine, why I work so hard. It's importantly for myself, but also it's like, you know, I'm like for my dad as well.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. If we just very quickly turn the conversation back to your last fight, the Tony Gravely fight. Obviously, that was a fight that never went your way and didn't go as expected. I guess what I would like to know is coming off that loss, what was the biggest takeaway for you? What was the biggest lesson you learned? I know it was a short fight, but what could you take away from that defeat?
Yeah, I feel like from that defeat, it was hard because we didn't really get to fight. But this is MMA, man. Shit happens, crazy shit happens, and it was weird because like it wasn't even like it's just like I walked into that thing I feel like I did to myself and helped him really generate that. But like the most I could take away from it is just really, there were a couple things, just entering the fight, being more in the moment. You know what I mean? Uh, not that everything was rushed, but like I feel like it's the apex, a weird place. Sometimes you gotta mentally prepare yourself to be fighting at the apex. At least for me, because I like fighting in front of fans. So sometimes it's like a different when you're walking out there and it's not a big crowd. You know what I mean? So it's like, oh shit, am I fighting? And then that starts coming into your mind. But when you need to be focused on fighting, so I feel like starting out, I wasn't quite in the moment. And then I was like, fuck, I gotta like get in the moment right here. Like I'm fucking fighting. Like as the fight's going. You know what I mean? And the other thing too, is like what I really took away from it is being focused and having the right people around me, which I have the right people around me. But there's been some people that came into my life that I feel like I was focusing too much energy on that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I feel like sometimes you want to help other people that are maybe like shit's not going right in their life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like I tend, you know what I mean? But at the end of the day, they want to drown. You just gotta fucking let them drown. You know what I mean? You can't focus your energy on helping people that don't want to be helped. And I feel like there were some people that in my life I had to just kind of push to the side, and it wasn't like nothing bad like drugs or that kind of stuff, but it was just like people that I feel like were dragging me down. I was putting too much energy on certain people, or people that were trying to help me out in the sport as well. It's like when I realized, man, they're just helping me out more for their own personal gain. You know what I mean? And when I thought they were friends, but really they're they have a lot of drama in their life and they're bringing me down. So that was a big thing for me, just really, cutting bullshit like that out and just really focusing on me, being selfish, and just worry about those in my circle.
100%. I don't mean this to come across in any way disrespectful, so please don't take offense, but your early UFC run has began with 1 win and 2 losses. Now, I know that this is the last fight on your current deal. Do you feel any extra pressure going into this fight against Sholinian that you've got to perform to maybe keep your place in the company?
Oh, of course. Like, this fight's important, but I feel every fight's important. You know what I mean? So it's like every fight's important. Like you want to go in a win. So for me, it's like that's another thing I feel after like the fight. Like every fight for me needs to be like my head's on the chopping block. I need to approach it that way, and I feel like I've approached it that way because for me, I know I've only lost twice in MMA, but I've come from a jiu-jitsu background. Jiu-jitsu, it's impossible to be undefeated. You got competitions every fucking weekend, so it's hard to get a streak going. But you might lose a match by a ref's decision or something like that, or maybe you get tapped out. But for me, every time I've lost, I'm a sore loser, man. So I've always came back strong, like refocused and everything. So it's how I feel for this fight. Like I feel like this is how I normally feel approaching most fights. You know what I mean? After like the first UFC loss, and then the second one, I was just like very focused on winning. For me, it was like I got to prove myself I belong here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like there's some guys that get in the UFC and they lose, and it's like, man, like I don't want to be that guy. You know what I mean? That gets in the UFC. A lot of guys get there and they're just happy. They're wearing the clothes. You know what I mean? They're telling their family, I'm here on their Instagram. Like they want to make it known that they're in the fucking UFC. And for me, it was like, man, like I never felt I was in there until I got that first win. And I was okay. Now I feel that I'm here. Now it's like I got to build a resume within the company to show like Dana, Sean, Hunter, Mick that I belong here. And I'm not gonna lie to you, I'm not happy with where I'm at right now in my career, but I know I'm gonna get there. And then this fight is a stepping stone to get there. And I feel very focused with this fight. So yeah, there is like the pressure is there that I got to win to be in the company, but at the same time, it's not just to be in the company. I got to win for myself. You know what I mean? That's the most important, and the most important thing too is showing up in the moment, being present. And I know if I